A college basketball player and his best friend did this after the game. What if the person you trusted the most on the court suddenly became the one you couldn't stop thinking about off of it? This story begins in the roaring noise of a packed college gym, where sweat, adrenaline, and brotherhood mix in the air. I was just another player chasing victory, but with him, my best friend, every pass, every look carried more weight than I could admit. That night after the game, when the crowd was gone and only the echo of the ball on hardwood remained, something happened between us that changed everything. This is not just about basketball. It's about friendship tested by feelings we never expected, about moments where silence said more than words, and about the risk of crossing a line you can never uncross. Every chapter will take you deeper into the doubts, the stolen glances, the closeness that built tension until it finally exploded into something neither of us could ignore. If you've ever questioned your own heart, if you've ever felt torn between fear and desire, this story will feel like yours too. So stay with me until the end, because what happened that night after the game is only the beginning. And before we dive into the first chapter, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss a single twist in this story. The gym smelled of sweat, varnished wood, and anticipation. The stands were packed with students in our college colors, their chants echoing through every steel beam that held up the roof. My hands were slick, not just from the heat of the game, but from nerves that had nothing to do with basketball. Every time I glanced at him, Ethan, my chest felt tight in a way I couldn't explain. We had been best friends since freshman year. He was the guy who pushed me in practice, who stayed late to rebound my shots, who laughed at my dumb jokes when no one else did. But somewhere in the past few months, the laughter had started to linger. The way his hands sometimes brushed mine in the locker room made me freeze, like a jolt of electricity shot through me. And now, in the middle of the biggest game of our season, all I could think about was him. The ball slapped into my hands. The defense closed in. Ethan's voice cut through the noise. "Here," he shouted, his arm up, eyes locked on mine. I trusted him more than anyone on the team. Without hesitation, I passed. He drove past his defender, rose in one fluid motion, and sank the three-pointer that brought the whole gym to its feet. The roar was deafening. He jogged back, grinning, and smacked my chest as we passed each other. "You saw me," he said, his voice low but filled with something I couldn't name. That look, God, that look, held me for a fraction longer than it should have. I shook it off, tried to focus on defense, but my thoughts betrayed me. I wasn't afraid of the other team. I was afraid of what was happening inside me. The final buzzer sounded an hour later. We won. The crowd poured onto court, students screaming, cameras flashing, chants rising in waves. I should have been celebrating with everyone else. But when Ethan threw his arm around me and pulled me close, it was like the world slowed down. His sweat mixed with mine, his body heat pressed against me, and for a second I thought he lingered. We showered, dressed, and joked with the guys in the locker room. No one suspected the storm raging in my chest. Everyone filed out to celebrate, but Ethan and I stayed behind. He tossed the ball toward the hoop and missed on purpose. "Come on," he said, his voice steady. "1-on-1. Just us, for old time's sake." I laughed. "You just want another excuse to beat me. Or maybe I want another excuse to hang out with you, without 100 people watching." The words hit me like a punch. My laugh died in my throat. He bounced the ball once, twice, and passed it to me. The gym was empty now, just a sound of rubber echoing off the hardwood. The silence between us was louder than the cheers had ever been. I dribbled, drove to the hoop, scored. He smirked, his eyes glinting under the fluorescent lights. We played for maybe 15 minutes, neither of us really trying. Every shove, every bump of our shoulders, every accidental brush of hands sent shivers down my spine. The air grew thicker. My breathing grew shallow, not from the game, but from the closeness. Finally, he stopped, leaning on his knees, catching his breath. "You ever think about us?" he asked suddenly. My heart stopped. The ball rolled out of my hands and bounced away. "What do you mean?" He stood up straight, eyes searching mine. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like there's something different between us. Like tonight, on the court, when you passed me that ball, It was more than just basketball. I swallowed hard, every muscle tense. I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, but his gaze pinned me in place. For the first time, I couldn't hide. Before I could answer, the gym door slammed shut. We both turned. Coach's voice echoed down the hall, calling for someone, reminding us it was a team dinner in 15 minutes. Ethan stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat radiating off his chest. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered, his voice softer now. "But don't tell me I'm imagining it." My breath caught. I couldn't speak. My silence was enough. He studied my face like he was memorizing it, then stepped back, grabbing his bag. "Come on," he said, his tone suddenly lighter, like nothing had happened. "We'll be late." But as we walked out of the gym together, side by side, I knew everything had changed. The game wasn't over, not the one between us. And the question echoing in my mind was one I didn't dare answer yet. What happens if I say yes to what I'm feeling? The team dinner that night was supposed to be nothing more than laughter, pizza, and the usual trash talk. But for me, it felt like every second was a balancing act. Ethan sat across the table, his smile bright as ever, cracking jokes, high-fiving the guys. To anyone else, he was the same as always, loyal teammate, life of the party. To me, he was different now. Every laugh, every glance in my direction felt like a secret only we shared. I tried to act normal. I chewed, laughed, chimed in when necessary, but my mind was still in that empty gym, his words ringing in my head. Don't tell me I'm imagining it. At one point, his foot brushed against mine under the table. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't. He didn't move it right away. My chest tightened, my throat dry. When I finally looked up, his eyes flicked toward mine for just a second before he looked back at his slice of pizza. I excused myself early, telling the guys I had an early class the next morning. Ethan followed not long after. Outside, the night was cool, the campus lit by street lamps and the faint glow of dorm windows. He caught up to me near the quad. "You bailed," he said, jogging a little falling to step beside me. "Yeah, I was tired." He gave me a long look. "Tired, huh? You've never left early before." I shoved my hands into my jacket pockets. Maybe I just needed some space. We walked in silence, our sneakers crunching over gravel. My dorm was only a few minutes away, but those steps felt like miles. Finally, he spoke again, his tone quieter. "About earlier in the gym." My heart hammered. "Yeah, I don't want you to think I was messing with you. I meant what I said. Sometimes it feels like there's more between us. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am." I stopped walking. My body turned toward him on instinct. He stood there, under the soft glow of the streetlight, looking at me with vulnerability I'd never seen before. "I don't know what this is, Ethan," I said, my voice tight. This isn't something I've ever admitted to anyone. But you're not wrong. There's something." The relief in his eyes was like a floodgate breaking. He stepped closer, hesitated, then pulled back, as if unsure of the rules we were suddenly breaking. We stood there, inches apart, breathing the same night air. My body screamed to close the distance, but my mind screamed louder, reminding me of the risks, teammates, friends, a whole world that might not understand. Before either of us could act, a group of students stumbled out of a nearby building, laughing loudly, their voices carrying. We both stepped apart instantly, pretending to be casual, like nothing was happening. My stomach twisted. He broke the silence with a half-smile. "Walk me to my dorm?" I nodded. We walked side by side, the tension like static electricity snapping in the air. Every brush of our shoulders made my skin tingle. When we reached his building, he paused on the steps. "We don't have to figure out tonight. I just needed you to know I wasn't imagining it." I nodded again, words stuck in my throat. He gave me one last searching look before heading inside. I stood there long after he was gone, staring at the closed door, my pulse still racing. The next few days were torture. Practice was the same, but not the same. The drills, the sprints, the sweat, all familiar. But every time Ethan clapped me on the back or leaned close to whisper about a play, I felt like I was standing too close to fire. One afternoon, After practice, I lingered on the bleachers, tying and reading my shoelaces just to avoid the locker room. Ethan came over, tossing his towel onto the bench. "You're avoiding me," he said. I looked up sharply. "No, I'm not." "You are. And if I said something that freaked you out, just tell me." I shook my head, frustrated with myself. "You didn't freak me out. You did the opposite, and that's the problem." His brow furrowed. "Why is that a problem?" I opened my mouth, then closed it, because I don't know what to do with it. He sat down beside me, close enough that our knees brushed. "Maybe you don't have to do anything. Maybe we just see where this goes." The gym door creaked open. Coach walked in with a clipboard, scanning the court. Instinctively, Ethan and I scooted apart. The moment dissolved, but the unspoken truth lingered. That weekend, we had an away game. The bus ride was long, filled with music, jokes, and teammates dozing off. Ethan sat beside me, his shoulder pressed against mine as he watched something on his phone. Nobody noticed how I leaned into him slightly, pretending it was just the cramped seats. After the game, the coach gave us the night free at the hotel. Most of the guys went out for food. Ethan and I stayed behind, claiming we were too tired. We ended up in his room, sitting on the floor, backs against the bed, sharing a bag of chips from a vending machine. The TV played some mindless sitcom in the background, but I couldn't focus. "This feels weird," I admitted. He glanced at me. "Weird good or weird bad?" "Both." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, same." The silence stretched, heavy with possibility. His hand rested near mine on the carpet, fingers just inches away. I stared at the space between them like it was a canyon. If I closed it, everything would change. And then someone pounded on the door. "Yo, Ethan." "Party down the hall." "Let's go," one of our teammates shouted. Ethan shot me a look, then got up to answer. The hallway light spilled into the room, along with the noise of laughter and music. He hesitated in the doorway, torn between the world outside and the moment inside. Finally, he turned back to me. "You coming?" I shook my head. "Nah, I'm good here." He studied me for a long second, then nodded. "All right, don't disappear on me." The door closed behind him, and I was alone with my racing thoughts. Hours later, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling when the door creaked open. Ethan slipped back in quietly, his hair damp with sweat from dancing, his shirt clinging to him. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't say a word. He just sat on the edge of my bed, close enough that I could smell the faint mix of sweat and cologne. And then he leaned down, his lips inches from mine, his breath warm. My body froze. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. "Tell me to stop," he said softly. But I couldn't speak. And in that silence, everything hung in the balance. I don't know how long I lay there frozen, staring into Ethan's eyes as he hovered just above me. It could have been seconds. It could have been hours. My chest rose and fell in quick bursts, and all I could hear was the pounding of blood in my ears. His breath brushed my cheek, and every nerve in my body was alive, screaming for me to close the tiny distance between us. But I didn't move. Neither did he. Ethan pulled back just slightly, studying me like he was trying to read a language I hadn't learned to speak yet. His lips curved into the faintest smile, a fragile mix of hope and fear. "Guess that's my answer," he whispered, pushing himself off the bed. I sat up instantly. "No, it's not." He turned toward the window, shoulders tense. "You don't have to say anything. I get it. It's complicated." My throat tightened. He thought I was rejecting him, but the truth was scarier. I wanted him so badly it terrified me. If I let myself fall, I didn't know if I could ever climb back up. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, feet touching the rough hotel carpet. "Ethan, it's not that I don't feel it. I do. That's the problem." He looked over his shoulder, his eyes locking onto mine. "So, what are you scared of?" "Everything." The word slipped out before I could stop it. The team. Our friends. My family. The way one wrong word could change everything we had built. He walked back toward me, slow, careful, as if approaching a wounded animal. Then he crouched in front of me, his hands resting on his knees. I'm not asking you to come out waving a flag. I'm just asking you to be real with me, with yourself. I stared at him, every ounce of me trembling. And then, for the first time, I let my guard drop. My hand lifted, hesitant, and brushed against his. The contact was electric, soft and terrifying all at once. His fingers turned, lacing with mine. We sat there like that, hand in hand, silence heavy between us. It wasn't a kiss, but it felt just as intimate. My heart raced, my breathing slowed, and for one fleeting moment, it was enough. Then came the knock on the door. We jolted apart, hands snapping back like we'd been burned. One of our teammates shouted through the wood, "Hey, Ethan, you still alive in there? We're heading out for food again tomorrow. Don't oversleep." "Yeah, I'm good." Ethan called back, his voice steady despite the storm inside. He waited until the footsteps faded before sinking onto bed beside me. "See? That's what you're afraid of," he said quietly. "People finding out." I didn't deny it. I couldn't. Instead, I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling. If we do this, if we cross that line, there's no going back. He tilted his head, his expression unreadable. Maybe I don't want to go back. The words sank deep, and I had no reply. The bus ride home, the next morning, was suffocating. The guys laughed, swapped stories from the night, played music too loud on their phones. Ethan sat beside me, earbuds in, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. I couldn't stop replaying every detail from the night before. The almost kiss, the feel of his hand in mine, the weight of what we hadn't said. Back on campus, life tried to resume its rhythm. Classes, practice, late-night study sessions. But nothing felt normal anymore. Whenever Ethan and I locked eyes during drills, it was like a spark catching flame. One night, a week later, we stayed after practice again. The court was empty, the echoes of bouncing balls long gone. He shot around lazily while I stretched on the bleachers, pretending not to watch him. Finally, he grabbed the ball and walked over, sitting beside me, his hair stuck to his forehead, sweat dripping down his temples. He smelled like soap and hardwood, familiar and intoxicating. "Still scared?" he asked softly. I looked down at my sneakers. "Yeah, me too," he admitted. "But that doesn't stop me from wanting it." Something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep hiding behind excuses. I stood, heart racing, and reached out for the ball in his hands. He let me take it, but our fingers brushed again, lingering. Then my voice cracked. What if this ruins everything? He stepped closer, his face just inches from mine. What if it makes everything better? Before I could think, his hand cupped the side of my face, thumb brushing my cheek. My body leaned in without permission, lips parting, ready to surrender. The gym doors slammed open. Coach's angry voice echoed across the court. "What the hell are you two still doing here? It's past closing." We jump apart like guilty kids. My face burned, my pulse hammering. Ethan tossed the ball toward the rack, his expression carefully blank. "Sorry, Coach," he said, his voice calm. "We'll head out." Coach grumbled something and disappeared down the hall. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan looked at me, jaw tight. We keep almost crossing that line. Sooner or later, one of us has to decide. I swallowed hard. He was right, and the truth scared me more than anything. That weekend, the team held a charity scrimmage in front of hundreds of students and alumni. It was supposed to be lighthearted, a good cause. But halfway through the game, something went wrong. Ethan went up for a rebound, collided midair with another player, and crashed hard onto the court. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed like thunder. The gym gasped. I froze. "Ethan!" I shouted, rushing to his side before anyone else could move. He clutched his ankle, face twisted in pain. The coach and trainer pushed through the crowd, but I was already kneeling, my hands on his shoulders, my voice frantic. "Stay still. It's okay. I'm here." His eyes met mine, full of pain, but also something else, something raw and unspoken. He grabbed my wrist, squeezing tight, as if grounding himself in me. And in that moment, with the entire gym watching, the truth of what we were, what we could be, burned between us impossible to hide. The sound of Ethan hitting the court replayed in my head like a nightmare on loop. Even hours later, after the scrimmage had ended and the crowd had dispersed, I could still hear the dull thud of his body colliding with the hardwood. I had seen injuries before, but watching him go down helpless, in pain, was different. It wasn't just a teammate on the floor. It was Ethan. The trainer and coach moved fast, helping him to the bench, icing his ankle, wrapping it in layers of white tape. The whole time, my stomach knotted tighter, my hands trembling as I hovered nearby. I knew people were staring, wondering why I was so worked up, but I couldn't care less. When the game ended, teammates crowded him, clapping his shoulder, offering reassurances. Ethan smiled through the pain, putting on his usual brave face. But when his eyes flicked to mine, I saw what no one else could, the fear beneath his smile. Later, when the noise faded and the gym was nearly empty, I offered to help him back to the dorm. He protested, of course. "I'm fine, I can walk." But the limp said otherwise. I slung his arm over my shoulder, and together we made the slow journey across campus under the orange glow of the street lamps. "You don't have to babysit me," he muttered. "Shut up." I shot back, though my voice cracked with worry. "Just let me help." His weight pressed into me with every step, his breath uneven. I could feel his frustration radiating off him, but also his trust. That duality, his resistance and his dependence, set my heart into overdrive. When we finally reached his dorm room, I eased him down onto his bed. He leaned back, exhaling sharply, running a hand through his sweat-damp hair. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at me, his voice low. "You didn't hesitate out there." "What do you mean?" "When I went down, you were the first one there. Before Coach, before anyone. Like you didn't even think. You just came to me." I swallowed hard. "Of course I did. I stopped myself before the word everything slipped out. You're my best friend." He studied me for a long moment, his jaw tight, his eyes searching. Then he looked away. "Sometimes I don't think that's all I am to you." The silence that followed was suffocating. The next week was chaos. Ethan's ankle sprain sidelined him for 2 games, and suddenly the weight of the team performance fell on everyone else. The guys joked with him about being lazy on the bench, but I saw how it ate at him. Basketball wasn't just a game to Ethan. It was his identity. Without it, he was restless, frustrated, coiled like a spring. We spent more time together off the court, late nights studying, sitting around his room watching movies, even going on slow walks around campus to keep him from going stir-crazy. But the air between us had changed. Every time our shoulders brushed, every time our knees touched on the couch, the tension burned hotter. One night, we were sprawled across his bed, a game playing on his laptop, though neither of us was really watching. His ankle rested on a pillow, still wrapped. He turned to me suddenly, his voice quiet. "Do you ever think about what would happen if people knew?" My chest tightened. "About us? About whatever this is," he said, gesturing vaguely between us. The looks, the almosts, the way he cut himself off, pressing his lips together. I stared at the ceiling. "Yeah, I think about it all the time. And it scares the hell out of me." He rolled onto his side, propping his head on his hand. His face was inches from mine. "It scares me too, but maybe that means it's real." My breath caught. His eyes held mine, pulling me in, daring me to close the space. My body screamed to lean forward, to let go. But then, a knock rattled the door. "Ethan, you in there?" Coach's voice. Stern, no nonsense. We both sat up instantly, hearts racing. Ethan called out, "Yeah, Coach." "Just resting." The door cracked open, and Coach stepped inside, clipboard under his arm. His eyes darted between us, lingering a little too long before he spoke. "You'll need to see the physical therapist again tomorrow. Don't slack. We need you back on the court." "Got it," Ethan said. Coach nodded, gave me a look I couldn't read, then left as quickly as he'd come. The silence he left behind was different, heavy, like a warning. Over the next few days, whispers started, small things. Teammates asking why I was always with Ethan, why I skipped hanging out to be in his room, why he only ever wanted me to help with stretches and rehab. Nobody said outright, but I felt the eyes, the questions forming behind their smirks. One afternoon in the locker room, one of the guys made a joke. "Careful, man, you keep hanging around Ethan like that, people are going to start talking." The room erupted in laughter. Ethan forced a grin, but I saw his jaw clench. I shoved my sneakers into my bag harder than necessary, pretending not to care. But inside, shame and anger twisted like knives. Later, when it was just us, Ethan closed the locker with a slam. "You hear that?" "Yeah." "Doesn't bother you?" "It does," I admitted, "but I can't let it show." That's how it starts. Jokes turn into rumors. Rumors turn into... He cut me off. "So, what? We just keep pretending? Pretend there's nothing here? Pretend last week didn't happen?" I couldn't answer. My silence was enough. That night, I lay awake in my own dorm bed, staring at the ceiling, the voices of my teammates echoing in my head. I wanted Ethan, wanted him in a way that was undeniable. But the world outside our moments together felt like a minefield. The next morning, I found him sitting alone on the bleachers, his crutches propped against a bench. His ankle was healing, but his eyes were heavy shadowed. "We can't keep doing this," he said as soon as I sat down. My stomach dropped. "Doing what?" "This. The almost. The hiding. The pretending nothing's happening when everything is." "Ethan." I started, but he shook his head. "You're scared. I get it, but I can't keep living in this in-between." His voice broke on the last word. "I need to know if you're willing to risk it. Us. Or if I'm just setting myself up to get hurt." I stared at him, words tangled in my throat. The gym around us was silent, empty, the air thick with the weight of his ultimatum. He leaned forward, his eyes locked onto mine, raw and unflinching. "So, tell me right now," he whispered. "Do you want me or not?" The world stopped. My pulse thundered. The answer hovered on my lips, but fear held a hostage. And before I could speak, the gym doors creaked open. A shadow fell across the court. Someone else had walked in. And just like that, our secret was no longer safe. The sound of the gym door creaking open froze me where I sat. Ethan's words, "Do you want me or not?" still hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. We turned toward the shadow that stretched across the hardwood. It was Marcus, one of our teammates. He stopped mid-step when he saw us sitting so close, Ethan's crutches leaning against a bench. His eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with curiosity. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. "You guys good?" he asked casually, though his tone carried an edge. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yeah, just talking." Marcus stared for a second longer, then shrugged. "Cool. Coach is looking for you. Ethan wants to check your ankle before practice tomorrow." He turned, footsteps echoing as he left, the heavy doors closing behind him. The silence returned, heavier than before. Ethan's eyes locked on mine. "You see? This is what I mean. It's only a matter of time before someone figures it out. And I can't keep pretending like I don't care." I dropped my face into my hands, every muscle in my body tight. "I'm not good at this, at letting people see me." He touched my wrist, gentle but firm. "You don't have to be good at it. You just have to be honest. With me, if no one else." I looked up, and the expression on his face nearly undid me. Vulnerable, steady, hopeful. He wasn't asking me to shout it from rooftops. He was asking me to stop running from what was already there. And for the first time, I let myself breathe. "I want you," I whispered. The words felt foreign and terrifying on my tongue. "I don't know what it means for the team, for us, for me, but I want you." Ethan's shoulders relaxed, a shaky laugh escaping his lips. His hand slid into mine, fingers locking tight. For the first time, I didn't pull away. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Rumors floated, subtle comments here and there. Marcus didn't say anything outright, but I caught his eyes on us more than once, his curiosity sharp. We learned to navigate the locker room carefully, to guard our touches and glances. But outside, in the quiet corners of campus, We stopped pretending. We'd sit under the bleachers after practice, talking for hours about everything. Basketball, classes, our fears, our futures. Sometimes words weren't enough, and we'd just sit there, shoulders pressed together, the silence saying more than we ever could. One night, after a tough win, we slipped out of the celebration early and found ourselves walking through campus. The air was crisp, the lamplight painting soft halos on the pavement. Ethan limped slightly, his ankle still healing, but his hand brushed mine, lingering. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Crossing the line." He stopped walking, turned to face me, and shook his head. "Never. Not once." His voice was steady. "The only thing I regret is if I never knew what this felt like." My chest tightened, emotion swelling in a way that almost hurt. For so long, I had feared what this would mean, what people would think, how the world would see us. But standing there, with him looking at me like I was the only thing that mattered, I realized none of it compared to this. I leaned in, closing the distance that had tormented us for weeks. This time, there was no hesitation, no almost. Our lips met, soft at first, then deepening, as if every unspoken word we'd buried finally found its voice. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. "No more hiding," he whispered. "No more hiding," I echoed. The season pressed on. Ethan came back strong, his ankle fully healed, his game sharper than ever. On the court, nothing had changed. We were still teammates, still the duo that trusted each other more than anyone else. But off the court, everything was different. There were challenges, of course. Whispers, curious glances, the unspoken questions we didn't have answers for. But through it all, we had each other. And for the first time in my life, I stopped running from myself. Now, looking back, I realized this wasn't just about falling for my best friend. It was about discovering a part of me I had buried for too long, too afraid to face. Loving Ethan forced me to confront my fears, my insecurities, and my need to always play it safe. He taught me that sometimes the riskiest shot is the one worth taking. That sometimes the greatest victories aren't on the scoreboard. They're in the courage to be who you are, even when the world is watching. So here I am, telling you my story. Not because it's perfect or easy, but because it's real. And maybe, just maybe, someone listening needs to hear that it's okay to stop hiding too. What about you? What's the part of yourself you've been afraid to face? What's the risk you've been too scared to take? Think about it. Because life's too short to stay on the sidelines. If my story moved you, if you've ever felt the weight of doubt and the pull of something you couldn't ignore, then stay with us. Subscribe to the channel, hit like, and turn on notifications. Because more stories like this are waiting for you. Stories of fear, courage, and the kind of love that changes everything. Because sometimes, the real game doesn't happen under the lights of the court. It happens in the quiet moments after, when you finally decide to stop running and just play with your heart.